There is a story the Cherokees tell, a story of the creation of the world. When a gigantic buzzard flew over the earth while it was new and soft. When he reached Cherokee Country, he was tired, and his wings flapped against the ground, pushing the earth down in some places and piling it up in others. This is how the mountains and the valleys were made. But the Cherokees, the Creeks, the Seminoles, the Chickasaws, and the Choctaws are relatively recent in this part of the world. As members of the 5 civilized tribes, they are perhaps the best known of the southeastern Indians. Between 700 and 900 AD, a new culture arose, a civilization the likes of which had never been seen in North America. This was the Mississippian Era, when the great temple mounds of the southeast were built. These massive earthworks, some of them measuring hundreds of feet around at the base, were built and rebuilt over a period of many years, gradually growing taller and taller. These distinctive flat-topped earthen mounds provided a foundation for temples, for chiefs' houses, and for other buildings important to the lives of the people of the Mississippian culture. The mounds faced a large open plaza, an area that was the center of communal life in Mississippian society. The plaza served as the village commons, as a playing field, and as a place for the rituals and ceremonies that were so important to these river people. During this period, agriculture began to play a larger role than ever before. The Mississippian people became increasingly dependent on cultivated crops like corn and beans, and their homes became more permanent as they stayed in one place to tend their crops. Along the Etowah River in North Georgia, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of a flourishing Mississippian community. At one time, several thousand people may have lived here, in a town that surrounded a number of large mounds. The largest was the Temple Mound, 63 feet high and covering 3 acres at its base. The Etowah Indians were skilled craftsmen, and the artifacts they left behind give us a glimpse into the lives of the people who lived here. Along with other Mississippian communities, they developed an extensive trade network, and they exchanged many of the raw materials used in their art that celebrated the glory of their chiefs and warriors. But as rich and grand as the Mississippian culture was, it couldn't withstand the pressures that arrived from a distant land. When Hernando De Soto landed on the coast of Florida in 1539, he came with authority from the Spanish crown to conquer, pacify, and populate the land. The Indians, superior fighters that they were no match for the guns, armor, and horses that accompanied De Soto and his men. As they plundered their way through the southeast, they tortured and killed many of the Indians who resisted them. The Spanish were followed by the French and the British, who established missions and trading posts throughout the southeast. They forced the Indians not only to work for them, but to accept and adapt to European customs and beliefs. The old way of life, the Mississippian way, was destroyed. For the next 3 centuries, the tentacles of European colonization reached deeper and deeper into Indian territory. the Indians became increasingly dependent on manufactured items offered by British and French traders. Things like knives, axes, kettles, blankets, cloth, rum, and most especially, guns. No longer able to rely on the natural world to meet all their needs, the Indians traded their most valuable commodity, deerskins. But along with the hides, they gave away something else, a way of life that had sustained them for generations. It was around this time that the southeastern Indians reorganized themselves to form the Indian societies of the Old South. Societies like the Cherokees, Creeks, Choctaws, Chickasaws, Catawbas, and Seminoles. One of the largest groups, the Cherokees, established the capital of their nation at Newachota in North Georgia. This was the seat of their centralized government, where they would gather to pass laws, hold court, and publish a Cherokee newspaper. But by the early 1800s, the Cherokees, along with the other Indian societies, found themselves squeezed into increasingly smaller territories. The southeastern Indians didn't simply fade away. Some of their culture remains today, their influence reflected in a surprising variety of ways. Many towns and rivers take their names from Indian words: Chattahoochee and Oostanala and Ogeechee, Tallapoosa and Tallulah and Conasauga. There are medicines first used by the Indians. Willow bark, for instance, from which our modern-day aspirin is derived, and ginseng, a popular herbal remedy. There is tobacco, the first cash crop grown in the South. There are foods like corn and squash and beans, pumpkins and sunflower seeds. And there are thoroughfares. Our railroads and older highways are in large part located on the same game trails and trade routes used by the Indians.